This is blog Kashis, and I just want to kind of get into the beginnings of talking about roots. And so every language has root words in it, and basically those are the building blocks for all the words. For instance, I think English, like the anti would be considered a root, and that just means like kind of like against, antibiotic, anti-Semitism, or things like that. So that's kind of a root in English, and so we have roots and Salish, and all of our roots are actually verb-based, meaning they're all the roots are actually verbs, and then depending on what's attached to them, they can either turn into inanimate objects or nouns and stuff. So in Salish, generally a root is made up of a consonant, a vowel, and a consonant. So say for instance, a root in Salish would be nik, which means to cut. Nik, here you have your consonant, and you have your vowel, and you have your other consonant. And that is the basic formula, I guess, for a root. And so that's what I was going to say. So a tip for you guys when you're looking through, if you're looking through the dictionary and you guys see this little square root symbol, the clever little linguists made that to mean root, like a root word. And so if you're looking through the dictionary and you see this, you have your little root word symbol and then like letters next to it or something like that, that means that it's a root word. And then it'll show you all the different words that root is in. So I just wanted to kind of play around with this a little bit, because roots, it's really important to know roots. One, because you can always identify that root in a word later that you're unfamiliar with, because if it's a new word for you but you recognize the root, you can kind of guess on what that word means just because you know what the root is. Also, it helps for making things more than one, so making things plural. So from ear to ears, it's reduplicating the root of it. So when you know the roots of words, it's easier for you to come up with plurals on your own or to make something smaller. You also need to know kind of what the root of the word is. So I'll give you an example of making something plural. So if we use this root right here, the nik, to cut, nik means to cut, but nik min, that's a knife. And so here we have our root, and then the min part is like a tool or instrument that you use. So if we were to say, okay, I got a nik min, which is one knife, if you want to change that into knives, then you have nuk nik min. So you're taking your root, which is your consonant, your vowel, and your consonant, and you're doubling it like that. So it goes from nik to nuk nik. That's what makes it plural. And so if you want to make it small, there's also a way you do that with the roots, and that's doubling the very first consonant that's in the root. So in our root nik, the N is the very first consonant, so you're going to double that up. So it goes from nikmin to nanikmin. Nanikmin. Nuknikmin, more than one. Nanikmin, little. There's also another way to make things little, which still involves doubling the first consonant, but it also adds it adds something at the end of it. So now if you want to say little knives, here you have knives, here you have a little knife. But if you want to say little knives, then you have nanuk nikmin. So that it gets pretty fun actually after a while, because then you have to double up and then make it small for little plural things. But that's definitely something you need to be familiar with roots are, is for making things more than one and making them small, because you don't duplicate anything that's not part of the root. And that's called reduplication. And reduplication, like I said, is used for making things more than one or making them little. There's also other ways that you can use reduplication. For instance, sticking with the same root, neek. In one of our chapter stories, this is one of the brothers' names in the three brothers in Kalispell maiden story, and his name is Nukutiat, which means cut up. And so this actually reduplication is reduplicating the is reduplicating the last consonant. So it's actually reduplicating the K instead of the N. So nukuk, that kind of means like he got that way. Nukukutia, he wound up getting cut up, and that's his name. Root words are actually one of the reasons that I really got interested in language and finding out what certain things mean. It gets pretty profound actually after a while, learning what all the roots are to different words, and it gives you a whole different perspective on things. Hopefully this made sense to you guys. So another thing I want to talk about was the difference between weak and strong roots. I'm sure a lot of you who've been learning language have heard the terms weak roots and strong roots. And so I kind of want to touch on it a little bit, is to introduce kind of the concept of a weak root versus a strong root. And like I said before, a root usually consists of a consonant, a vowel, and a consonant. And what makes a root weak or strong, it has to do usually with its vowel. And basically, all the vowels in the words, this is what I try to explain, how I try to explain to people, is that all of the vowels are fighting. All of the vowels want to be stressed. All of the vowels want kind of the spotlight, I guess. And so a weak root and a strong root is basically a root's ability to hang on to its vowel or the stress in the word. So, and a couple examples I have here, we have the root, and pharyngals are consonants, by the way. We have the root, ach, which means to tie something. And then we have the root at, which means to look at something. And so ach is a weak root and at is a strong root, and I'll show you why or how we know that. So if I was to say here we have achant, which is the command for tie it up, achant. Then we have the command for look at it, atant. So here's your root in achant, but the stress is not on this A anymore. This A came up and stole its stress. But this vowel, this one is still here, and this A right here is actually trying to come up in this word, but because this is a strong root, this A isn't able to pop up in this word. And so the same thing, if this was a strong root, that A wouldn't even be there, and it would be just achant, but it's achant because it's a weak root. So this means tied up. Acham is just like it was tied, or I tied something, or he tied something. So if you say kin acham, I tied, nothing really specifically, just I tied. Kin acham. But if you were to say I looked at something, kin atsum. And so you know that this is a weak root here because that A comes through again, and this stress is on that second A and not on the root. And here that A was not able to come through again, so it's just atsum. Here's another form. Achantine. And so this I right here is stressed. And then we have Atsin. So I have I tied it and I looked at it. So because this is a weak root, this is actually trying to come through on this word again. So the I is trying to pop up in here. And because this is a strong root, it's not letting it again, but since this is a weak root, it is able to pop up and take its stress. So this says achantine, and this says atsin. So I'll get more into it later, especially when we start getting into the transitive stuff. But right now, I just kind of wanted to let you know that there's weak roots and there's strong roots, and it's all about vowels and stressing and who wants to be in the spotlight. Okay, bye. Lena.